thank you all, and good morning to each of you, to Congressman Connolly and Congressman Cummings. Thank you so very much for your presence here. Welcome to Prince William County and to Woodbridge, and it's a pleasure for me to join you. You're absolutely correct. Hopefully the Virginia State Troopers will be my friend in about 20 minutes so that I can make it to Richmond and punch in that I'm present for the General Assembly. This past election, I think it took many of us by surprise. Not only the level of turnout, but the enthusiasm that surrounded the election process and the voting process and the large number of people who turned out for the election. I just want to take a couple minutes and share with you my experience on Election Day. I voted at the Henderson precinct, which is located in Montclair. My wife and I stood in line for maybe an hour and 10 minutes in order to vote. And there at our site, lines were not too long. We had about 8 voting machines at our precinct. And we got through the line, like I said, relatively with great ease, and took about an hour and 10 minutes. Took longer this past election than it did 4 years ago, actually. And then after that, I had the privilege of driving around the community and visiting other precincts and observing what was happening there. And some of them, the lines moved fairly quickly. But what you will hear from some of us talk most about would be the River Oaks precinct. And I want to make a few comments in regards to the River Oaks precinct. I arrived there around 3:15 in the afternoon. And what greeted me, even before I got into the school, was the parking lot. There was absolutely no place to park. I was totally shocked and amazed by what I saw. And then upon finding a parking space, and as I approached the school, it was just absolutely incredible, the number of people standing outside waiting to vote. I was surprised by the number of people on the outside, but what amazed me the most was once I got inside of the school and the wraparound lines in the school absolutely just astounded me that so many people were actually not only in line outside, but in the school as well. And then I became very concerned because we were going to be approaching the 7 o'clock hour, and it was going to get cold. And I want to commend the administration at the school, Potomac Middle School, for how they worked with leadership to move the voters inside of the building. It was interesting because we had to be very creative. I was there with some of the officials from Prince William County, some of members from the Democratic Party, actually, and we worked together to ensure that people would not become discouraged and go home and not vote. I stayed there until 8 o'clock in the evening. And when I left that voting precinct, there were several hundred people in line. And thank God that we were able to move them into the school building. I went to a meeting with the Electoral Board of Prince William County. And this is the following comment that I shared with them. I shared with them that as I looked at what was happening, it looked like voter suppression to me. But I said to them, you may not have deliberately participated in voter suppression, but you left the impression that that's what was happening. And I think that is something that I'm sure they will certainly work on. Part of my criticism, at the precinct where I voted, we had 8 voting machines. At the River Oaks precinct, they had 6. Lines much longer at the River Oaks than at Henderson. And so it really raised some questions within my own mind as to what was occurring. The other thing that I shared with them, and I'll share with you this morning, where I voted, not a minority population. But what I witnessed at River Oaks, a tremendously large minority population. So one could easily draw conclusions that something was happening. Now, mind you, I respect the Electoral Board, and I'm sure that they operate with tremendous integrity. My role in speaking with them was to ensure that they would, and we as elected officials would do all that we can to ensure that we can correct the problem. And to that end, I have several pieces of legislation that I have introduced during the course of this General Assembly session. One will be addressing absentee voting. Another piece of legislation will be addressing having paper ballots accessible to voters. We did not have paper ballots accessible to voters in Prince William County, and I think we need to have that available. Also extending the polling hours. We need to join states such as North Carolina and Maryland in extending our polling hours, going from 7 p.m. to perhaps 8 o'clock in the evening. And also reducing the number of registered voters required per voting machine. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, it is my understanding that per voting machine, you get one voting machine per 700 voters. Is it 700? 750. That is absolutely incredible. And I think that we can do a little bit better than that. You all can help me, and my colleagues in the General Assembly would probably criticize me for this, but you all can help me by contacting your members, your representatives in the General Assembly, and encouraging us to do what we can do on the state level relative to easier access to voting. And probably the one thing that we should do and can do is provide resources so that that can take place. Mr. Connolly and Mr. Cummings, thank you so very much for giving me this time. I appreciate it so very much. And with that said, sir, I think I'll go to Richmond.
Thank you, Delegate Torian, and you and I witnessed the same things on Election Day, and I think there are also some fraternities that really made a difference. You may want to cite them too. I don't know.
I am a proud member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and I would tell you that that my fraternity was at this precinct, and they worked extremely hard, delivering water and food and coffee, ensuring that they did all that they could do to encourage voters to remain there and to stay in line and to vote. And it was very encouraging to see the community efforts. I really appreciate the work of Supervisor Frank Principe, who was on site as well, and Mr. Keith Scarborough, working to do all that perhaps he could do to ensure that citizens had an opportunity to vote.
Just want to say one thing before you leave. Delegate, I often tell my proteges that we in representative government, we just don't pass laws, but we have to be out there on the front line when our people are in trouble or have problems, trying to help them. And I think, the types of things that you just talked about, being there for people at a critical moment is so very, very significant. But then at the same time, to go to Richmond to try to create legislation to address the problem that you saw, that's how government is supposed to work. And so I just wanted to thank you, and I also want to I hope that you will express our appreciation to the members of your fraternity for standing up and making a difference. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cummings, and again, thank you, Reverend Dr. Delegate Luke Torian. The distance, it is said, between Northern Virginia and Richmond is about 300 years. So hopefully this time it won't be. Good luck down there, Luke. Thank you so much.